What is up, all? Good morning, good afternoon, and wherever you are in the world, welcome. This is your host, Stefan. This is the BIYG podcast, Believe Growth. I am here today with another video, and I was thinking about something I said yesterday. Actually, I came across it, and yesterday, or not even yesterday, it is yesterday, but in the last video I did, which was taking a chance, I'd said something about Sarah and Abraham knowing, and as I read the passage, it wasn't deliberately stated that Abraham would have a child with Sarah the first time, Sarai. But the fact that, you know, God said to him, your slave would not, be the recipient of your prosperity or your things, basically the inheritor or whatever you would call it, but it would be one from your own body. And so, I just wanted to clear it up because in my mind, when I think of one, because in the beginning I do believe that it says, even in the Bible, when it talks about a man and a woman coming together, they are one. And so the fact that God says to him, it will be one from your own body, him and Sarai at that moment, they're married, they are a couple, they are together, united before God. And so in my mind, there's a common sense that we are one. But that did bring me back to the point of what I was saying, as when you go to take a chance, you get involved in your life and you're not passively just waiting. There's the negative to what Sarah did, but there's also the positive, in which why I believe God did not, just disregard Ishmael and punish Ishmael or Hagar or whatever, or them as a whole. But she took it in her hands and she was like, well, we don't know. Apparently they didn't know what God meant or how it was going to happen. So they actually took a chance, and the repercussions were a little bit more than what Miss Sarah could handle. And so God, I think, honored the fact that they wanted to be proactive in the promise and in the vision and what God has spoken. And so therefore he made way for Hagar and Ishmael. But either way, today I want to talk about I'm gonna call it minding your company. But I mean, no, I think that's kind of the perfect title. I have weird titles. I don't have really like these catchy things. Maybe, somebody will think it's catchy and somebody will think it's, accurate and fitting. But it's going to be centered around knowing who's around you, being secure in who God has called you to be, and not letting people infiltrate the word and the promises and dilute them with their own understanding or with what they feel should be occurring in your life. So let's just I have direct relationship to this as do I in many of my podcasts and scenarios and conversations that I talk about. Most things I don't talk about if I don't know about. But yeah, so let's just start. So I do, since we already opened up with Sarah and Abraham, let's talk about Sarah. Ole Doubting Sarah. She was the initial, the official Doubting Thomas. And it's good and amazing to see that there is mercy and grace for our moments where we don't really fully believe, but God doesn't punish us for that, you know, maybe all the time. But there's just that thing about God that's like, I'll show you, I'll prove to you that I care for you, that I love you, that what I said is law and who I am is eternal, you know? And that's the good thing about it, you know. Even when we come to our moments and our phases and our places where we have this hardship in trusting what God has said, and especially when long durations have occurred and taken place, it gets even harder as your faith is chipped at every day, every week, every month, every year, however long certain promises or certain scenarios and things take, you know. But Miss Doubting Sarai, I forget what her initial name meant, but she is now the princess. She took matters into her own hand, you know, as a person who you have to be careful of in your life. And some people, they mean well, you know, but you don't want to cause unnecessary strife just because let me try anything. It's best to sit still when you don't have the green light, or you don't have the plan, or you don't have the know-how, instead of trying to concocting up anything just to manifest something or bring something into your now. And so, you know, Sarah, she doubted her own, well, one, as she should, because, you know, we are finite, but God is infinite. So her doubting herself wasn't the issue, but her lack of faith in God was seemingly more the problem, and as it should have been, as it should be in all of our cases where God tells us something. And you know, I assume that Abraham and Sarah, you know, they tried and they kept trying, and like I said, as the years go by, you're not seeing this thing, and so you start to doubt. But I'm sure they were active in their faith, they were active in the word, they worked, they waited. And you know, one good scenario about waiting is waitresses and people who tend to services and restaurants and stuff like that, how they wait, what waiting really entails: good service, love, and hospitality, and being attentive, and doing the work while looking for the promise, and just trusting the process as a whole, which I saw that something similar to the process and promise earlier today. But no, you know, as as she just suggests, you know, a safer seemingly solution, and quicker, maybe, if that's, I don't even think that's the right thing to say, but thing to get the job done. It's the easy way out. And a lot of times we do that when our faith is troubled, and we're weary, and we lose hope in well doing in our obedience. We look for the easy way out. And there's a lot of scenarios that can pertain to modern day taking the easy way out versus trusting what God said, or trusting a servant of God, trusting a prophet of God, and you know, those who are really endowed with the Holy Spirit. And it's just being in a place, you know, looking in my own life internally. I know it's not a good thing to have those kind of people in your life, and I have a testimony to come. It's still in development, but if I can just give a piece of it, you know, there was a question that was a question about what would all it was in a network. I forget what it's called, but it's a Christian network, a Christian social platform. Let me see right quick. And it's called The Sanctuary. And so one of the men posed a question to every man, every guy, and what he would say, you know, what they would say to their 20-year-old self. And so I had to make a post about that on Facebook, and I really genuinely want to reread it because that post had me so stuck and so scared. I mean, I wouldn't say scared, but it had me really stuck in my thoughts. And I'm only 24. And the fact that I have any regret in my life that was not one that I created for myself, it disturbs me and it makes me sad. And so, you know, this plays a role in the topic of today, if I can get to it, because my Facebook isn't loading. But if I can read it, you know, I just think having people like Sarah, and then the next topic I want to talk about is the 12 spies who were sent to go into Canaan and spy out the land for 40 days. But, you know, you have people who think that they know best or think they have a solution, and they're relying on their human sense and not the God sense, not the godly wisdom, and trusting in the vision and plan. And it's a dangerous situation to be left alone and hoping and waiting for God, because you'll easily get enticed and I would dare say tricked, even though that's a little too harsh, but you can easily be swayed, you know, when you don't have a good community. And that's another part of the conversation, as Michael Todd made a sermon about your we's being weak. And anyway, let me just read my a little bit of the testimony that I have to come, and that I know that God is really still working on and turning around as we speak. But this is the post. Saw a question directed to men about what they would say to their 20-year-old self, and it made me think, but also made me wonder. You have one life with many decisions. Every decision will create a situation that you'll have to endure. Some people may play Balaam and create situations for you, but no matter what or who influences or discourages you, you will have to live out the decision. Don't let 5 years go by and what was easier yesterday become a struggle today. Ignore everything except God. Don't let spiritually dead people murder what's in you. Resist the temptation to be like Jonah, whether by your will or the people around you, and run from your assignments. Remember, it's your life, and they will throw you overboard no matter the cost, leaving God to save you. Obedience is better than sacrifice. You have a never-ending passion and vision. As a young person, begin to pursue it and continue where you leave off every day. Build a relationship with God. You could have and lose everything, but to know you're saved, seriously saved, and not for play, is worth more than life itself. For many reasons, but for the sake of now, know all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord, and God rescues all those who put their trust in Him. Begin to fast and pray diligently. Let it be a way of life. Enjoy the words of Adonai. Elohim wants you here. You've been set apart. The spirit of death wanted you, but Yeshua paid the price. Jealousy encamped itself around you, but the blood shielded you. Spirit of perversion seduced you for years, but your husband will take back his bride, and your bed will be undefiled. All this by grace. Sin gave you no option. You will feel like new, but look in the mirror and feel like old. The results of war. But you will be renewed, and all will be recovered, for you will know the name of God. And so, you know, though that may be a little encryptive. And how does that pertain to the message? Well, when I was around, it was like 2018. So I think, yes, when I was 20, I told this story before, but I felt like the Holy Spirit and so much zeal came over me for the gifts and the talents and skills that God has given me, that I feel as if though I didn't learn, I was given since birth and been doing for a very long time. And I was working. You know, people have their arguments about what work is, but a working man is someone, it's work does not equate to having money. Now, granted, we hope to be able to make a livelihood and have a livelihood through our work. But you can sit here and say there are people who legit make $1 an hour and hold that to the standard of today's society. Who considers that working, or is that slavery? And so why not do and work something that you love and build foundation and build momentum up to it becoming a possibility and a for sure thing. That's what I'm believing, a for sure thing for success and profitability in your life, versus staying at a place or in situations that don't really give value and give the full extent and express who you really are and the reason as to why you've been placed on this earth. And so, you know, to me, working has to do with, do you wake up every day and apply yourself? Do you put yourself to the test from sun up to sun down, as it says in Ecclesiastes? Are you working hard? Are you giving everything you got? Because you never know which seed will cause a blessing, and you never know if all of them will bring back a prosperous harvest. So, you know, as that was happening in my 20s, I was just going at everything, drawing, singing, writing, and making videos. I had my first initial YouTube, you know, and it was called Paul Knoppets. Knoppets. And it was fun, like doing all of that. It wasn't just fun though. It was like I could feel God in my life. I can feel work. I can feel purpose, you know. And in that moment, I had a Sarah. I had someone who they were looking at it from human perspective and human eyes, and they seemingly convinced me to cheat on the promise, cheat on something that God desired for me. And so, though, you know, I believe it's the same way now that I'm making the comparison and really being able to see it like this in such a prophetic way. God makes things work together for the good of those that love him. I believe that fully. And so just like Ishmael and Hagar was taken care of, I believe me being detoured and delayed in such an aspect where it wasn't my fault. And I want to get into that because Oprah Winfrey talked about that a little bit, where there are negative and people who won't take accountability. Because one thing about it is your family should be your number one supporters. Does not matter. People are so wicked and so vile. If you think that there's someone around you and it's not your responsibility to support them, it may not be, but how could you sit back and watch someone want to change the whole trajectory and direction of their life and not want to be a participant in that? That's wicked to me. I think that's evil. And now, granted, like I understand there's morals and certain things. Like if someone's doing something completely opposite to what you stand for, that's different. But if somebody is just, I mean, they're clean, they're seemingly righteous, seemingly wanting to follow God or whatever your stance might be, and they're not coming up against anything that you believe in, there should be no problem with you investing, because it's not always about a monetary thing. It's a lot that you can do, especially in this day and age. A like, a share, a comment, and you sharing your connections. There's so much, and that's gonna go into another topic. But there's so much that goes into play to you being supportive. It's not just about money. And I hate that people make it seem like, why are people so, I saw this earlier today, which was so ignorant, but why are people so afraid to get a job? It's you make a job. You can literally make a job. Now, whether you go and you work for someone else or you work for yourself, I don't understand how people can sit here and admire others who have accumulated millions but won't respect someone who wants to make their own millions from their own business. Every business starts somewhere, but what people celebrate now, they celebrate people who have, profound and success that's already established, but they won't invest in someone who is trying to get it going and actually build a new thing. And now that's not everyone, so I can't really speak like that, but I don't personally understand that. And I'm all about, I don't care about supporting people who've already made it. I don't have an issue with that, but I'm not gonna sit here and ignore people that are trying to do something better in their life, because I want something better for my life. I don't know. That's crazy to me, but I bring up Sarah in this moment because though she meant well, what she did caused her trouble, and it caused Abraham trouble. And the same way in my life, it caused my Sarah trouble, and it also caused me trouble. And I'm believing God right now that he's actually gonna deliver me, because I've always wanted to pursue God. Though I may not have done it perfectly, God has been my number one. And so I just, as things transpire and progress, I'm strengthening, and I'm asking and I'm wanting my faith to be strengthened. And the same with anyone else who has encountered a hardship or is going through a moment right now. I pray for their strength, and that, God gives them a reason to keep believing and never abandon him. So we can be like, we can have the faith like Ezra, to never turn away and know that God blesses those and cares for those who trust in him, but is angry with those who abandon him. But I just realize and know, being honest with who is in your circle, because it could be a wife, it could be a mother, it could be a brother, it could be a father, it could be a friend, it could be anybody you love dearly that thinks they know best, but they genuinely don't. No man knows the plans of God. And one thing, I went to a food market like a few months ago, and I saw one of my old teachers, and one thing that hit me, and it wasn't that it was profound, but it was confirmation for me, because she expressed the story how they were so they pressured their first son to go to college and do all this stuff, and long story short, he ended up with debt and all this other stuff, right? And so then they tried to do a different thing with the second son, but he followed his heart and he did what he felt was right for him. And according to the mother, he is doing seemingly better than the first son. And so that hit me so sweet and so good, because one thing about it, two things for sure. God gives you the plan and the blueprint for your life. If you trust him, if you will block out, and that's not saying that people don't have wisdom, but people don't know everything about life. Your elders don't know everything about life. They can teach you how to be safe and how to be smart. But if they don't lead with what is God saying to you, what do you feel, or what are you hearing, most of the time you cannot trust them. Because if they don't acknowledge God first, most of the time their wisdom is just earthly knowledge. And I mean, we can go back to Job's friends regarding that. How I don't know how to say his name, but the youngest of them all, I'm pretty sure he was like a teenager, maybe in his 20s, maybe. But Elihu, I don't know, but Elihu, he sat there and waited and let them get all of that mess off their chest and tried to be respectful because they were elders and older than him. But then he realized God is the one who gives wisdom, and shut all of that ignorance down. And that's the beautiful thing about it. God is the one who gives a man the wisdom and the plan he needs to prosper and be successful in every aspect of his life, if we seek and trust him. And so I know that was a long spiel on like the Sarah in your life, these people who think they know well, but they really kind of make things worse for you. And then when it comes down to the hard thing, you're left to make the decision. They'll force you to fix it after they created the trouble, but your yes also participated in it. If they had not tempted you and if they had not persuaded you, then the situation would not have been what it was. But people don't take accountability in that. There's accountability on all sides. It's our lives. We are meant to live with each other. So it is hard really taking responsibility for everything that goes on in your life, because yes, you do have the choice. But sometimes it's hard to realize you have the choice when there are people always in your ear. So really what I'm saying with Sarah's is you got to learn to silence out every voice that seemingly contradicts what God has shown you, what God has said, what you believe. Don't let nobody put you in a trap to where now you are desperate for anything, because desperation creates a environment for sin. Poverty definitely creates an environment for sin. It is sin itself. But when you're in poverty, you can't do the things of God. You can't help the people of the earth. You can't. I mean, there's so much that you miss out on, the goodness of life. God wants us to have fun, not just live to work to death, but to experience his creation. And poverty makes it hard to do that. And poverty, I had a conversation with someone and they think anyone who is lower class, that's not poverty to them, which is ignorance to me, because people in lower class are still struggling to survive depending on their circumstance. But some people are too arrogant and prideful to reduce their lifestyle, so that's where they have that issue. But even still, to not be able to enjoy life fully is a form of poverty. And so, one way getting to poverty, you got to get rid of Sarahs. You got to get rid of people that they get afraid. It ain't even got nothing to do with them. Well, it do, but they so caught up in their flesh that they miss God spoke to you. And if God said that, they forget it. They forget all of these things. But it's kind of crazy, because even in the face of God, Sarah was like laughing. I mean, behind his back, really, because she laughed and he was like, why does she laugh? And it's crazy, but Sarah was honestly the initial doubting Thomas. That's crazy. But anyway, I spent 30 minutes on Sarah. Lord have mercy. We gonna get off her and we gonna move into the 12 spies. They were handpicked by Moses. For 40 days, they studied the land and the ways of those who occupied the promise. Then proceeded, what in the world? Then proceeded to testify about the richness of Canaan. But only Joshua and Caleb believed God and desired to take the land. Joshua and Caleb, their years were extended because of their faith. And though they seemingly suffered because of the fear and doubt of those around them, they trusted in God, allowing them to see the promised land 40 years later. And so that's one thing about it too. Being careful, and although God told Moses to send them, but you got to be careful who you pick and who you let go before you, who you trust with certain things, and who you confide in, who you take counsel from. Because 12 of them had the same experience. They saw the same goodness and fruitfulness and plentifulness of the land, but yet only 2 of them had enough faith to say, let's go get it. If God told us to go to do all of this, and God split the Red Sea, and God is making all of this happen, gave Miriam leprosy for 7 days because of her disrespect of the chosen. God chose Moses, and what you don't do is disrespect the one he anoints and appoints. But he healed her. He didn't do it to kill her. It was a lesson. But if you have these people who seemingly are afraid, they live in fear, and that's the problem with bondage and poverty and slavery, and let's talk about all of that internally. It starts in the mind. If you can't see anything better for yourself, if you can't envision or believe or speak better, if you can't control what comes out of you or what reigns inside of you, then you're seemingly doomed. And honestly, that's what was happening with the children of Israel. They complained a lot. They moaned and groaned. But you can understand why. They came from one situation and went into another, and it didn't look as good as they thought it would. But that's a lot of people who take a chance and go out on a leap of faith. In the very instant, it doesn't look as if though, what they thought or what God said or what they believed would happen. But it takes time. Some great things take time. And it is not even just, it is the waiting, but even like I said earlier about the waitresses and people who do, restaurant stuff like that. They're waiting. They had to move. They had to constantly move and be on the move. And it's just being mindful of people with dare I say a dead history. Well, not dead history, because if it was dead, they'd probably be renewed and restored and thinking differently. But past that are still infecting their future and their today. And especially taking advice from people who quit before, they could see the harvest. They have a pattern, and they have symptoms of, I listened to someone before I could really step into my dreams. It's crazy. It's crazy out here. But to me, what I get from the 12 spies is like a few things. But one thing regarding Joshua and Caleb, you can be blessed because of your faith and still be punished being around those who have no faith. Because ultimately, yes, that is a negative energy, a leech, a detriment to your well-being and your spirituality and the promises of God in your life. Being around people who are not equally yoked, who do not have the same mindset, who do not have a belief and a greater belief than negativity. They don't look to the hills which cometh their help. They're looking to the land. They're looking to the everything that is coming out of the ground. But that's one thing. You can be punished even when you try to do right. And you'll have to go 40 years. Because to me, yes, they got into the promised land, but they still had to wait 40 years. For believing God. Punished because they they were attached to people who were afraid. Cut them off. And honestly, if you can't cut them off, God will. And that's one thing that I've realized in my life. Sometimes, people will wonder why you don't come around or why you don't want to be around certain people. You got to realize when people's faith is dead and where they're doing the same thing. And, people who don't have a vision, don't have a dream, they won't take risk. They'll do the safe thing until they can keep doing a safe thing, until they can get what they want. They'll keep doing a safe thing until God is nowhere in the picture. And I said yesterday, God ain't stupid, and I know God ain't stupid. God does give us wisdom and common sense, but faith is required. And we live in a time where people don't want to have faith. People don't want to have faith. And, I don't want to be like Joshua and Caleb struggling for 40 years because of the people that were around me. Because they were dead in their faith, afraid of men who will wither away like grass. When God has everything I need and I want and everything he said and promised right before my eyes. And so, that's another kind of people to look out for. You got Sarah, the person who think they mean good and they want to, make sure they want to help you, but their help is really a detriment. But then you have the 12 spies, the 10 spies really, who can see all of these good things. They see the promises of God. They see amazing things before them, but they're afraid. They move in fear. They don't have courage. They won't let the might of God be their shield and lead them and guide them to victory. Got to be careful of them 10 spies. But okay, and so, those are really my two, I guess, centerpieces, I would say, of people to look out for. And I'm sure there's many other people in life to be mindful of when you're on the pursuit of what God has spoken to you, or, wanting to change a thing in your life. But those two people are just people that I've encountered and I know are very detrimental, and it's biblical, But now I want to talk about some videos I saw today, actually, and it was kind of like confirmation to do this video. And one is Todd Michael. He's a pastor of Transformation Church, and in this Instagram reel, he was speaking on a message about the importance of having a strong we and the consequences to having a weak community. When you fall short, will they come through? When you boldly commit to a dream, will they do their part as a support system? And, that is very important. I mean, like I was saying earlier in the video about support not just being financial, but you can't look at a person and say they're lazy, and you can't look at a person and say they're not trying when you never shared anything. You never just support in any realm, aspect. You didn't do anything for them. But that's how the enemy works. The enemy, and I've noticed lately how the enemy will literally try to trigger you, try to play with your emotions and make you think you're the problem, but really it's the environment. Sometimes it is your environment. Yes, you have to be honest and say and realize, am I not doing certain things? Am I not approaching this accurately or properly? And what strategies and what things can I do to really make success even more probable for me? But there's always the self-analyzation, but then also the external realization about what's going on. And when you got dead people around you, and this is why I take dreams very seriously. I had a dream a while back, and I think I told this dream, I can't remember, but I had a dream a while back, and this was on a Sunday, and there was a thief in my dream, and this person was sitting right to the left of me, and they kept trying to go in my pocket and get my wallet. And you know, to me, the wallet is significant of your identity, your finances, your resources, so much the blessings of God, you know. And honestly, it's material things, but really God calls us to a prosperous and blessed life, internally and externally, I believe. And so, you know, as this dream plays out, I'm not going to give bit by bit, but as this dream plays out, you know, this is a wedding, this is a celebration. And skipping later, and after, you know, waking up and going to church this Sunday, I received 3 encouraging, almost prophetic words regarding me. And so then here comes Satan, like normal, and the thief. And as the situation happened, this person was really trying to confuse me and speak differently about what God just spoke to me and what I know about myself, and change the narrative and confuse me, like I said, about my identity, stealing my identity and giving me a faux one and give me a fake one. And so I had to call it out right then and there. I was like, so you're the one I saw. And sometimes you can't call people out like that, but I don't know, when you live experiences with certain people, sometimes you got to be bold about it. You got to let people know what's going on. And it'll be in your family, it'll be in your friend circle, well, your supposed friend circle, the communities that you place yourself in. You never know where jealousy or these attacks will come from. But the enemy seeks to steal, kill, and destroy. And that day, the enemy was seeking to steal, kill, and destroy my identity. And especially in who God was painting this picture of what he knew about me and who he was building me up to be. And so, you know, I say that because right now, currently, I don't have a we. So my we is me, God, Jesus, Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit. That's my we. And honestly, I'm going to tell you that we is stronger than any we you will ever have. Now, that doesn't mean God doesn't want us to have fruitful and positive and you know, healthy relationships. I believe God does. But first and foremost, I'm thankful over the years that I've been able to build this connection, this love, this reverence, partnership with God. And, you know, tending to the desires and the needs of God as he tends to the desires and the wants that I have. us being in love and going back and forth, and it not being about, oh, well, you did this, so I'm gonna do this. God has done many things, and I don't deserve them. So, you know, God has been better to me. And sometimes it feels good knowing that you are so good to me. And I want to be just as, it'll never happen, but I want to be just as good to you. But yeah, I mean, really knowing if right, or knowing your circle, is your friendships, are your friendships, are your partnerships, is your network strong enough and smart enough, intelligent enough, wise enough to seek God, hear from God, get the downloads, get the strategy, and do the things needed to make sure, firstly, all of you, but when it comes to individuals, make sure that you got what you need and you are cared for and looked after. Because let's say they're not in the same realm, and this is one thing I hate, you know, I feel like you shouldn't have to pair up with people who are going in the same direction to get support. That's weird to me. You know, it's an awkward story when Jesus went back to his hometown, and he could have healed and did so much more for the people there, but because they rejected him and they couldn't receive him, he couldn't do anything. So he was limited because of his we. Because where you come from is your first initial we. The community, it takes a village to raise a child. So it's crazy when you're around a bunch of people who don't have the faith, who don't want to believe. It limits you. It limits you. And really, that's why it's just very important to know, who are they, who am I, and who are we? And once you see who they are, honestly, that should really help you determine if they're beneficial. And it's not always about getting something from someone. Can you be an addition to the lives of others? But that's where it comes down to we. If you're always being a benefit, or, you know, this good source of abundance and life, but you're never getting poured into, then that's a negative. So anyway, I want to get into now Oprah Winfrey. She spoke on a negative energy and simply put, leeches. People who aren't up to par with the vision you have or the word of God spoken in your life. She didn't necessarily say the word of God. I don't even know if Oprah is Christian, but the video had a purpose. They are passive and space fillers, not providing any help or purpose besides doubt and accusations. So after all the reason they accumulate as to why you're not successful, they never admit, I don't share your content. I don't tell my colleagues or connections about you. I don't pray for your business to flourish or any of that. So it's dire to cut off that connection with them immediately. If they won't acknowledge their part in your success, replace them with people who actively dream. Place yourself around like-minded people who aren't competing but are steady believing in each other. And so, you know, I added a lot there, but that's simply what I got from it. And I'm very big on that. You know, people do seriously think it's up to you. And honestly, it is. Your life is your own. But if you are around people who do not feel accountable for you and do not feel it is their responsibility to push you and help you, then they are not for you. And I'm not saying that they have to drop their life, because the same way they're pouring into you, you need to be pouring back as much as you possibly can. If they can say he's always busy, but when I need him, he come through. If they can say that, then you doing your job. But if you can look in your life and note that there are no people that come through, that's an issue. But yet you always, they always want to do frivolous things, but they don't tend to the important matters. My thing is, I didn't go a lot of places and I didn't hang around a lot of people because I wanted to pursue my passions and I wanted to pursue my dreams. Now, I can say I probably got discouraged, and being sometimes going through spiritual warfare and maybe not even having the discipline really hindered me. But my future and my present is a completely different story. I'm blessed and I am disciplined and I am focused. And so, you know, with all of that, it's like, I don't have time to be around. And even then, I didn't have time to be around people who wanted to just sit around and talk and do nothing. Because the same people that want to sit around and talk and do nothing, they're with you. They don't want to help you. They want to call you lazy. They want to call you unproductive. They want to say you don't have no aspirations. They want to make it seem as if though you made the biggest mistake in your life. But really, the biggest mistake is me thinking that, let me not go down that road. But, you know, you got to realize who is a hater and who really loves you. Don't listen to the person who's the loudest. Listen to the person who do things, who does it, who is about that life. Let people say all they want to, but until they start putting that work in and actually representing the things that they talk about, then boom, it is what it is. But I mean, my thing is, you know, I really genuinely don't want to be around other artists or anybody in my similar field. I don't mind it because sometimes, you know, God works like that and that'll be fine. So if I'm blessed with mentors and people in specific fields that relate to me, thank you, God. But I want people who I don't have to compete with, who are real humble, who are generous, because I want to be those things too. And I want to constantly keep in mind, you know, who can I help? What can I say? What can I do? What can I give? Giving is so important to me. And I mean, yes, giving financially is so important to me. You know, there was a video of this woman that I'm now watching, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's perfect timing watching her right now. But she lives, I guess, in $1 million home, and she has businesses and all these other things. And, you know, even with her having the assets and things that she has, she still has the same mindset I have, where it's crazy how you can have all of these people admitting to you that they watch your stuff, they see what you're doing, they notice it, but yet they will not sow, they will not pour, they will not do anything to help you secure a better future for yourself. And it's they see your work, they see you're working, but to me, it's wicked. She brought up the fact of Paul saying, give to Caesar what's Caesar's and give to God what's God's, and how she's not gonna wait on the children of God to feed her. Because honestly, like, the conclusion I came to, a lot of the children, quote unquote children of God, are wicked, live in poverty. They don't understand the importance. If they really did and act like they act like they do, I mean, ministry wouldn't be so hard all the time. But you know, like Paul gets his out the mud. He goes and does another job, because ministry is a job. It is a work. But so he don't have to put that pressure on people who already struggling to receive the word, because once you start asking for people treasure, then you start messing with something that's a sensitive topic. But people's hearts are in their money. Crazy. I mean, sadly, it just is. But the fact that this, you know, woman who is prosperous and blessed is actually speaking on this, it's not like she has to. She's blessed at this point. But the humility of it all, and realizing, looking back, and even now, there's people who take. And the enemy tried to taunt me with this too. But you can't taunt someone who loves God. Yes, it hurt, and it's something that is like, well, why did it happen to me? But you know what? God did it. God blessed someone. And even if God didn't bless me in that moment, he blessed somebody, and it didn't happen to the next person. So that's really what I be happy about. Yes, I want God to bless me, but if it don't happen to me, dear God, don't let the same negative experience be somebody else's. And that's just where I stand with that. You know, I don't want people to go down the same road that I went down regarding other people and their manipulative ways, their abuse. People in church need to be paid for their services, especially if you want them to do anything that's not, I mean, I guess like ministry wise. If it's not ushering or deaconess or anything like that, people need to be paid. If you want somebody to come in and do some architect, some construction, some art, or anything like that, people need to be paid. But I mean, child, you just gotta know who are the people that I'm around that are sucking the life out of what God has given me. Because life flows through us. The reason why we can reproduce, because we carry life, we carry living water. And it's by God's command, God's design, that we do that. And so, you know, I take all this, you know, and really I relate to it, which is like why I said earlier, I try to only speak on things I know about. And some people may feel like, well, you talk about yourself too much. Well, I would rather talk about me than try to come up with fake news or spend time invested in people I don't know nothing about, I ain't never gonna see, and they don't pay my bills. I mean, but I use my testimonies and I use my experiences to share what God has seemingly brought me through and out of. And so someone's going to find it entertaining. Someone's going to find it informative. Someone's going to find it knowledgeable and beneficial. But my thing is with minding your company, knowing who is around you, you know, and letting that be a leading, not maybe not number one, but letting that be a major factor in building success. I mean, your circle matters. If you can't rely on nobody, you can't, I mean, depend on encouragement from someone. You can't, you know, look to someone to remind you about your goals and your ambitions and what God has said. You can't find an Elijah. You can't have one of those people in your life when everybody else is trying to make you out to be the villain and letting you blame God. They're not reminding you God is in control of all things. And if God decides to allow something to happen, it's for good reasoning. So don't lose your head. And it's the same way with issues and problems. Like what my experience is, God allowed me to go through it. And so I can't be angry. I can't be mad. Yes, it hurts and it's uncomfortable sometimes. But if God allowed me to go through it, just like with Joseph, I think Joseph, just like Joseph, right? If he got pushed and put into the well and then sold into slavery, his brothers plotted to kill him. But he had a dream from God and was bold enough to speak on it, bold enough to share it with people. But maybe that was in the will of God that he shared it. Maybe it wasn't. But either way, what you meant for evil, God made it work for my good. So ultimately, there was some wisdom there that Joseph knew. God didn't want this to happen to me, but it did. But he's still gonna get the glory, and he still made his promise come to pass. And so that's that thing right there. Trusting and believing, no matter who is in your circle, no matter who has tried to discourage you, belittle you, or, who comes around thinking they know what's best for your life. And sometimes we'll fall for it. Sometimes we'll let them, push us in another direction. Sometimes we'll let people manipulate us and do negative things and control our destiny. But ultimately, God is in control. And if God showed you a vision, if God promised you something, I got a few promises I'm holding on to because God showed me through dreams, through some prophetic people, and maybe even my own heart's desires, and experiences I've had growing up that I'm holding on to. And I'm not going to let them go just because of the hardship that I went through. God's word will prove and perform to be true. And so, it's a long video, but I think my podcasts are going to be like an hour anyway. But just remember to stay positive. Keep that with you, spread it wherever you go. And always take inventory. Look at your life and look at the things in your life. Are they additions or are they subtractions? Are they negatives? Are they detriments? Detrimental. And so, I mean, that's really the end of this video. I don't have much else to say. Sarah, she thought she knew best and she wanted the best, but sometimes you gotta ignore the people that think they want to protect you, or they want to, force and rush the will of God. You gotta trust God. You gotta pray. You gotta fast. You gotta stay in a humble place where you can hear from God. And then keep them 10 spies. If you can have a Joshua and a Caleb in your life, that's good. But you gotta discern those two individuals. The people that are go and the people that have connections, the people that know a thing or two, and they'll teach you, they'll help you, they'll guide you, they'll lead you. They'll find the resources for you. They'll help you get to the resources. They'll teach you how to make something for yourself. But they won't be afraid. They can invest something. They know how to invest something. They're not afraid. Let the people who are scared go. Let them run. Leave them in the dust. And they'll be wandering in the wilderness for years and years and years, thinking they have it figured out. But Sometimes people think the wilderness is homelessness and all this other stuff. You can be in mansions and be in the wilderness and be desolate and destitute, be poor and a mess on the inside, rich and still in poverty. How is that? Because you don't have peace. You don't have God. You don't have faith. But stay safe. Love yourself and love others. I'm Stefan. This has been the BIYG podcast. Minding your company. I'm out. Have a good day. Good night. Wherever you are in the world. Period.